The work session for the Village Council of November 12th, 2024. We will have 3 items listed under general business. The first will be a discussion and somewhat of a presentation on residents' proposed improvements to the Pinehurst traffic circle. I'm very excited that this is taking place because we often talk about resident participation and resident input, and we have a group of residents, some who are here tonight, who have put together some what I'll call serious proposal to make improvements to the traffic circle, and I think the village says thank you for putting your time and effort into this, and I hope that some residents watch this video and see your work product. I've quoted in the past President Kennedy's famous remark in his inaugural, and paraphrase it to that: ask not what Pinehurst can do for you, ask what you can do for Pinehurst. And we actually have some residents here who are trying to do something for Pinehurst. So we will begin, however, Shannon, who shall come first? It's up to, why don't we do that?
Oh, we're going to do Parker first.
All right, then let's do Parker first.
No, the objective, is my understanding, is that after seeing these different and creative potential solutions, we as a council may want to embrace them at least and have conversations in a meeting with NCDOT as to why not, or do these make sense, or maybe we ought to seriously consider these either as an ultimate solution or possibly an interim. Is that the objective here?
Yeah, I think we may go as far as sending them to them rather than just meeting. And then
absolutely.
And so they give them some time to observe and comment and make suggestions and whatnot, and certainly have a meeting with them on it. But again, I think what we're seeing is citizen input into a situation that is needed, and where we had a great amount of citizen participation in the public hearings earlier. Thank you. That
Pat, if I could just follow up Jack's comment.
This is in the category of no stone left unturned relative to the
Yes.
traffic circle.
Yes.
So Jack began meeting with a couple of the people who had come before council before and expressed some ideas, and I sat in on the last, 1 or 2. And I think that is the right idea. I mean, as we have found out, the way the DOT approaches problem solving is they study it and they put very qualified engineers on it, and they come up with an answer and they present the answer, and it's not quite take it or leave it. But it would be helpful if some of these, where our citizens have put a fair amount of sweat equity into thinking these things through, if we as a council gave a little bit more of an imprimatur to them. And I would also follow up one of Jeff Morgan's comments in the spirit of not making it take it or leave it, but trying to create some more dialogue with them before they get to the point of saying, here's our new solution. So that's 2 pieces of background. With specific reference to the presentation we're going to see first, Pat had some text messages back and forth with Parker. He asked me to have a conversation, which we did yesterday. His is an idea in some ways similar to the AI idea that was presented to us verbally, but it's been much better thought out than that. And he has also, as I think he'll describe, had some conversations directly with DOT. So, Parker, thank you for your time and for coming before us tonight.
Yeah, and before you start, Parker, please tell us where you live and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Parker Garrison. My family lives in Seven Lakes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
In Seven Lakes. And I started, once I saw that this was an issue back in 2020, just drawing some different ideas on paper and seeing, like, how could I maintain the circular nature of this, not shut off any one of the 5 entrances or exits to the circle. Came up with a few more complex ideas that required more merging and yields in the circle. Decided I didn't want to have any stops once you're in the circle. Eventually came up with this design, which is a modification of existing turbo circles, though the existing circles using the turbo design are all limited to 2 lanes. This overcomes that limitation by putting traffic lights at the entrance to the circle. So let's use the example of coming from Seven Lakes or West End, going to Aberdeen. The lanes will split off at some point before the circle. You'll have to stay in your lane throughout the entire circle, and there will be barriers in the appropriate place to enforce that. For simplicity, I didn't draw the gaps between the barriers when you're entering the circle, but there will be gaps in those places. As I was talking with John, he even suggested maybe you could raise and lower the gaps for when the light turns green. That could be done as well, but that's not required. And additionally, for multimodal access, there would be the opportunity to have a smaller lane to accommodate golf carts or bikes. I think the most common part that we would use that is connecting Route 2 to the opposite Route 2. I don't see many people trying to ride golf carts on the other 3 lanes into the circle, but having some connectivity there would be of use. There's already a side path that's been proposed along Route 2 going to Southern Pines, as there is along Route 5.
I would find it helpful if you would tell us where the car is and what color on this map does car X go? So
Yes, so let's say we're going from West End to Aberdeen. The lanes would ideally be painted to indicate clearly where you're going to your destination. So you would go to the light green lane to go to Aberdeen. You would have 2 options. After talking with NCDOT at some of the other meetings, I added a second lane option illustrated here for the return trip from Aberdeen back to West End, seeing that that was not addressed by their current models. Traffic flow was backing up, particularly on both 15501s entering the circle.
Margaret, is that pointer work at all on the table here?
Let's see. Yes. All right, so if you can see the pointer here, in my example going from West End to Aberdeen, you'd pick whichever lane. There's 2 of them here.
and you pick one of 2 lanes. What's the distinction between the 2 lanes?
The 2 lanes is just for increased throughput.
Okay.
So at that point, there's no difference. And say we realize that in traffic modeling that we don't really need a separate lane for going from West End to Carthage, because there's 2 different points before that you can cut over at 73 and through Taylortown, depending on how far you are. Let's say those only need to be 1 lane, then we could condense the orange and blue lanes into just 1 lane going through the circle. And when I was talking with Councilman John Taylor, he informed me that outward expansion of the circle in this sector and in that sector was unlikely. Pinehurst Resort here, some other private properties here, but that we could potentially expand the alignment outward along those 3. So the alignment would probably shift to the left, and we would be able to maintain most of the trees that are currently within the 550-foot or so diameter of the circle.
Well, help me understand this. When I'm understanding the stay in lane grouping, those 4, as they're coming from West End and they enter the circle, they pick the lane of their eventual destination. But when coming back from those other destinations, 15501 or 2, they're coming back and they're on these red lanes and they're heading to West End. So where does all that merging take place? It looks like there's 3 lanes this way and 4 lanes that way.
Yes, the West End destination and the Aberdeen destination both have 3 lanes going to them. The merge for Aberdeen is shown here. The merge to West End was not shown on this map just due to space constraints. And the lanes would split off at some point around Page Road or after that to if you're coming from West End and entering the circle, it would become 4 lanes where there are now 2, and only one of them actually goes in the circle anyways.
We talked a little bit about, yesterday, about additional space that would be required to have these additional lanes. And I think Parker was a little aggressive in some of the assumptions, but not necessarily, because you don't have to have absolutely all of these. The one thing that is true from the standpoint of a visitor, if you get in the wrong lane entering the traffic circle, you're not going to have an option to switch lanes. So if you intended to go 15501 north, but you got in the lane 15501 south, you are going to have to go south.
It's basically
On
just
some
like an
point.
interstate exit. We
Exactly.
don't want people trying to switch lanes in a circle. Oh, and one of the other constraints.
By the way, that's not any different than if you pick the wrong exit lane on an interstate today. You may end up going south and having to go to the next exit and turn around, so. I think we probably all have done that at some point. So.
Yeah, and one of the other constraints that I worked with was that we had to increase the throughput through the circle beyond just right turns to more than 1 lane, because right now we're stuck with not really being able to go to 2 lanes in our current design without going to like unsafe Jersey-style circles or confusing DC-style circles that have circles inside of circles, controlled by 2 separate traffic lights, and you can't tell which light is for yours. So like you were mentioning here, say we don't have the land to go to 4 lanes, then maybe we decide that there is just going to be 1 lane to 15501 south and 1 lane to either to combine the orange and blue to 15501 north and 2 east. And so then you stay within the current footprint, basically, but you still get 2 lanes going into the circle, and you double capacity through the circle.
Okay, 2 questions. How much of the circle are we taking away from the circle? Do you have to carve out an acre of the 6.3 acres of trees, or what is it? What's your instincts tell you there?
My instincts say that we would be adding 2 to 3 lanes, and that each lane would be about 14 feet with 2-foot barriers, so that we'd be adding about 60, 70 feet. That probably is going to not take away from the circle at all on the side near Carthage, those 3 quadrants. It probably will take away from some of the trees on the side near Pinehurst Resort and Aberdeen.
Okay.
So that we would lose about 30 foot or so on that side.
Okay.
So these traffic lights are independent for each lane, and they would be somehow or another sequenced to cause certain directions to be in the circle, whereas other lanes would be waiting right next to them? Is that the idea?
Yes, and you're ahead of me already. The
I'm sorry.
No, good point. The simplest way to do it would just be to have it sweep around in a counterclockwise direction, so that there's not conflicts with traffic that's already in the circle. So, for example, green from West End, green from Carthage, green from Southern Pines, green from Aberdeen, and then green from Pinehurst, and repeat the cycle. But the more, we can set up some more complex arrangements. One that I imagine will be particularly common, especially during the evening rush, is 15501 Aberdeen entrance to the circle. Allows all lanes except the dark green one to Pinehurst as green. Southern Pines is red. Carthage allows traffic just to both West End and then to continue south on 15501 in the outer lane there. And so then you're able to get those 3 most heavily backed up directions of traffic to all move to each other at the same time.
And let me say, go ahead.
You have artificial intelligence recognizing how much traffic is coming in at certain times of the day and adjust the traffic via the traffic lights and also?
Yes, there would be the opportunity to dynamically adjust what lights are green and for how long.
And in principle, it doesn't have to rotate. Lights on opposite side could change at the same time, depending.
Yes.
Could you also describe for the other members of the council some of the conversations you've already had with people at DOT?
Yes, so I was at the DOT's public engagement meetings in Pinehurst, and I had communicated with their traffic engineer, Ruben, over email. He said he was going to take that concept and see if they could model it in their software, and I believe they would score it based off of that.
Yeah.
He said he hadn't seen any concept like this before, and he wanted to see how it performed in their models.
Well, thank you. That's what we're hoping to be able to provide. That's the value added we hope that the village and its residents can provide. Let me ask you the second question. Will it be necessary to acquire through eminent domain any property around this circle?
So based on what I had spoken with Councilman Taylor about, we would not be using eminent domain on either the Pinehurst Resort section or on that section. But on each of these three sections, there would be the likelihood to acquire properties with all participants involved voluntarily.
Two of the three.
So that's owned by Village of Pinehurst, right? That's owned by the medical clinic, and that one is likely up this one here between Carthage and Southern Pines. Okay, and if we do not have the ability to buy any of those sectors of properties, there's always the opportunity to put the additional 2 or 3 lanes inside the circle. It would be, with how this area is probably going to be more lanes than the other, it would benefit us if we're able to purchase at least some of the property. If not, then we have to take away about 30 feet of trees on those sides. Still maintains 480-foot or so circle.
I think the setback where Pinehurst Trace is, there aren't any homes built right there, so it is at least conceivable without having
And
mapped it out.
it doesn't impose on PGA Boulevard or Dalrymple Road?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So the commercial area along PNC Bank is a question mark.
Okay.
I think the corner between Midland, 211 and Midland Road, I believe the lot closest to the circle is actually owned by the village, so there's at least room for a conversation there. But my guesstimate is that there are no homes that would be involved. There certainly would need to be some acquisition of land beyond possibly the existing right-of-way.
So the big issue is the number of lanes approaching the circle.
Yes.
Whether you can have enough width to accommodate those lanes.
And we talked about the actual, how far back you have both for diverging and converging, merging situations.
Yes, there may be restrictions based on the NCDOT, like we have to go, say, 300 feet back when we add a lane or something right before the circle. It definitely would, we wouldn't have to go as far back as the traffic backs up now, whereas like sometimes I'm backed up to Rattlesnake coming out of West End trying to go through the circle.
Okay, other questions for Parker? Parker, once again, thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yes.
Have you calculated the throughput at peak hour?
So I haven't done that calculation myself. My rough estimation is that if we were to implement this exactly up there, that it would increase throughput by about 3 times of the current levels because of the amount of people who are now able to pass through the circle instead of just making right turns.
And I like the concept where, for example, peak hour 15501 going north, or from the south coming to the circle, where you can change the lights
Yes.
so that you have multiple lanes going. However, if I understood it correctly, you have lane dividers that channel you to a certain area. If you have, for example, instead of 1 lane going, you have 3 lanes going, how are you going to transact across those dividers to get to that point?
Yes, so there would be a gap in the dividers where you are entering the circle, and there would be no opportunity to change lanes once you're in the circle. When your lanes diverge before you enter the circle, you have to select the correct lane at that point. We could also add, for example, a raised groove in the middle of the lane while entering the circle to prevent people from trying to take evasive maneuvers and switch lanes. And as I had just mentioned, what I had talked about with the Councilman John Taylor, that we could also raise and drop barriers on a green light to further emphasize to cars already in the circle that they're not supposed to try to stop and then try to make a hard right turn or something to cut over. It will be very difficult to do that with the current constraints, but that would just enforce it further and try to make that sort of dangerous behavior even harder. I saw the NCDOT's report that we had some crashes due to a left turn at the circle, which shouldn't be done at any time. So obviously, we need to put up some. I think it's some people actually trying to turn left, as I saw someone trying to turn left from 211 and then ended up just U-turning back once they realized that the circle was one way.
Again, anybody else want to quiz Parker here? Parker, it's impressive. Thank you, and we'll see what the next steps are. Please stick around and hear some of the other suggestions.
All right, thank you, Mayor Brazil.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, next on the hit parade.
David and Peter?
Don't let anybody steal my stuff.
Introduce yourself.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us get up here and make fools of ourselves. Appreciate that. I'm Dave Herring. I live in Pine Wild. Lived here for about 6 years all total. Started this exercise doodling about the traffic circle for my own enjoyment, and now I'm wonder if I'm going to regret that. But you can push the button, or I can. Can I do that? I can do that. So, Peter? You want to introduce yourself?
Peter Mamosich. I live on Royal County Down. My address is Royal County Down, Pinehurst, but technically it is Southern Pines.
Do I have a mouse that works?
If you click the forward button, it should work. But
Just the forward and back, that's all.
Impressed with the video already. This is
So we can, even better. Thank you.
So you see, it does work.
First, move to Paris. I don't have a mouse.
12 spokes.
Sorry, can't find my mouse.
This looks similar to some of the NCDOT
There it is.
videos.
I like the double-decker bus that was going by at one point. I thought we might have been in London, except we're going the wrong way around, so clearly we're not.
That was the famous hop-on, hop-off bus.
Can't move it. Shannon, can you provide any technical advice here?
Too far away?
Holding it upside down.
Wait, it was upside down. Oh, that would do it.
Oh, Peter, you had the mouse upside down? Thank you.
Is that a keyboard? Sorry, guys.
Bless you.
Here goes. No, it's gone.
I like the guy at the top who's pointed the wrong way. He's in trouble.
I see the mouse, but it's not responding.
Ah, it could be the mouse fan.
There it is.
There
Okay,
you go.
we're in business.
Thank you, Doug. Okay.
Buttons on the bottom here for, how do I advance it to the next slide?
Down the lower left.
Lower left, there's a forward arrow button.
I see it, right there. All right, finally, we get to go.
All right.
The objectives. I hate people who read for you, but these are our objectives. If you'd like, I'll read it, but I'll give you a second to read it.
Go right ahead. Please, no, people can, you can read it loud, so there might be people
Read it.
listening.
Find traffic circle improvements that improve flow and safety while maintaining the special nature of the circle and Midland Road. Maintain to the extent possible, the circular character and trees and streetscape of the Midland Road iconic entry to Pinehurst. Find solutions implementable in a reasonable time frame and less expensive than wholesale rebuild and destruction of the circle. Minimize the above-grade structures which are inconsistent with historic environment, and minimize or require no additional property acquisition.
Just like to add one thing.
That mic
Speaking the mic closer, Peter.
NCDOT kind of gave us a mandate that peak hour throughput should be 6,000 vehicles per hour. That's kind of, in 2050, that's what they're looking
And
at.
that's based on their 80,000 vehicles estimate, okay?
Really, it's, the 80,000 vehicles is not an issue as much as peak hour demand. So we have 1.5 hours during the day that's really clogs everything up.
So we're going to show you today 3 schemes. The first one we're calling the true continuous flow, and we'll talk about that one first. This is a quick layout. This particular solution addresses all 5 spokes. They're all treated equally. There are no traffic lights and no additional land is required. Only one of 4 destinations requires merging, which is outboard of the circle when exiting, and it's a long parallel merge from right to left. Only one of 4 destinations requires a lane change, which is outlined in the outlined red arrows. I'll show you where those are. And there are some grade-separated crossings, but they are underpasses, not bridges. So, to show you how these work, a color-coded solution addressing just one of the spokes, keeping in mind that all 5 spokes are treated equally. In this example, we're coming north on 15501. Pause for a minute. North is up. 211 west is on the left side, right here. 2 east is on the right side. 15501 north and 15501 south, with Midland going to the club on this quadrant here. So first, let's be the yellow car, and we're on our way to 2 east. We would be in the right-hand lane. We would follow the yellow road until we get to about here, where we would have to merge to the left. We would have a long parallel merge from right to left. Questions? Next will be the blue car. The blue car wants to go 15501 south straight north to 15501 north. We would start in the left-hand lane. We would travel north. We would go down let's call it a ramp, to be an underpass going under the traffic circle right here, while the traffic circle would be above you.
So would there be a height limitation on the vehicles that could go under there?
There would be, and what that is debatable. Peter will show you some schemes which have a shallower solution because his scheme has alternative solutions for trucks and such things.
Okay.
In this case, this would have to accommodate trucks. It would be possible for the ramp down and the traffic circle above the blue ramp down would go down. The traffic circle could gradually go up, but would not be a bridge. So depending on the topography, how it works across the circle, adjusting the overpass upward and the underpass downward could accommodate those clearances. We're not entirely sure what NCDOT would require for clearances. In some cases, we think it's 14 feet. In other cases, we think it's 16 feet. And in some cases, we think it could be as small as 8 feet.
The operative question is whether that would be a car option only or car and truck.
Yeah, with this kind of design, you have to have it able to handle trucks.
Right.
Because
There's
it's the
only
only
one
way
way.
around.
Yep. So this blue car or truck, they would have to accommodate both. So the blue car would travel around the circle and would exit 15501 north, would not make any changes, would make no merges. So he would essentially have a free pass, 15501 south to 15501 north. If, on the other hand, the blue car changes his mind and decides he wants to go to 211, he'd hang a left right here on the green road, and again, he would have a free pass out 211 west. No merges, no lane changes. If he changes his mind again, he would have to change lanes from the blue lane to the purple lane, and he could do that anywhere from here to here. Once on the purple lane, he could exit 2 Midland going toward the club.
Let me ask you a question. If we made this not so friendly to the person who changes their mind, okay? So we took away the purple there. Well, we might even take away the green, but if we just took away the purple and said, look, you were tending to go 15501 north. Okay, if you change your mind, you get to change it once, okay, and you can go to 211 west. Would that make the rest of that an easier process? Could we just drop that purple, I made a mistake again lane?
Unfortunately, no, because the purple lane is sometimes, for other spokes, it becomes green.
Oh, okay.
So this is only a solution for people entering the circle from 15501 north,
Okay.
south, 15501 south.
See on the next slide, Pat.
So we have, essentially, Pat, we've answered your question for all 5 spokes. I'm not going to go through all of these. But this one is the one we just talked about from 15501 south. But as you can guess, the other 4 work the same way from each of the 5 spokes. They're all treated equally. We also looked at the clearance requirements that we just spoke of a minute ago. Here are some sections through some potential half down and half up conditions. That means that the underpass goes halfway down whatever the clearance requirement is, and the upper part of that would go halfway up whatever that clearance requirement is.
It wouldn't really be a bridge, it would be a slight upgrade in the existing road.
Yes, if you think of the railroad crossing near the club, like that, about that scale. There's a matrix up here if anybody wants to get into the weeds. This will tell you ramp slopes and ramp distances and all of that. We won't go into that. In this particular case, there is the challenge of going under and then going up to go over. So the distance from bridge to bridge becomes critical. And this is a matrix which talks about that condition, how steep must the ramp be and so forth. Keep in mind, though, that the underlying base grade of the circle, we don't know. So we don't know, for example, how far up the upper part can be. So by adjusting the distance between the bridges and adjusting the vertical location of the bridges and the horizontal distance between them, the ramp length and the clearance can be affected.
Okay, gotta stop you there. I understood when we were watching that green car go 15501 from south to north. But why do we now have this gray part coming down this way from 15501 north into the circle? I didn't see that before in the earlier slide. No, keep going.
Oh, from 15501 north? Is that what you're?
No, from the south.
Okay.
See that? You've got the blue.
Okay.
And it goes around, and as you said, there's no need to merge, there's no need to do anything. It's a straight shot.
Right.
And I'm trying to understand,
This gray?
no, the gray underneath the green and the purple.
Right here.
Yes.
Those are underpasses.
Underpasses, and where do they go?
That's 15501 coming south
I
into
get
the
it.
traffic circle.
So are they getting onto what, though?
Well, let's be the blue car up on this diagram.
Okay.
We're coming from the north down the blue road. We go under right there.
Okay.
And that answers your question.
That's
So the blue eventually goes around and could go off to 2. They could change their mind and go off to green. They could be really indecisive and change lanes to purple and go off to 2.
But if they were going straight from north to south on 15501, what is the route they come down?
They come down blue, go around blue, hang a right, get on the green, and go
Green.
south.
Okay, I got it.
No lane changes, no merges.
I got it.
But all 5 entry roads will go down and under unless you're taking the first right-hand turn.
Exactly. And that entrance road, part of the thinking there is that the people who are not taking the first right are in the left lane, they're going to have to slow down because of this turn right here. So it's a traffic slowing mechanism as well.
Apart from any speed limits that would be posted, the reality is they're going to have to slow down to make the curve.
Right,
Radius, yeah.
right.
And what we're minimizing the amount of the circle we have to interfere with?
We
on
are.
this?
Our very last slide will address that.
And we're minimizing any eminent domain also?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me back up one thing that we didn't mention. Probably this slide. This is a concept for an overpass. This happens to be a simplified one with 90 degrees, real simple. But you can imagine if this road is going down, the grade right in here would have to go down with it. There would be some kind of a retaining wall right in here. And this particular diagram shows a grade slope from the top of the retaining wall down to the existing grade at about 1 and 3, but it could be 1 and 2. Some aggressive people might even say 1 and 1.
1 and 3 is what DOT told me once
Did they?
upon a time they prefer.
Yeah, that's what I've diagrammed here.
Yep.
So it's not, everything is not flat. There's retaining walls, there's slopes, and so on. If I can get this to work, Peter, I'll pass you the baton.
All right, hand it over. Now that we've seen the absolute best solution, I'll take over with a much simpler one. Oops. Back.
The bottom left corner, there's some buttons that kind of vague. Go to the left, right in the corner. Right there. One more. And the purple isn't showing up. One more.
One more.
There you go. Whoop, too far. You got it. One more.
More. There you go.
Please speak
Hey,
into
this
the
is-
microphone, please, Peter.
This
So-
is a single express lane that handles, in this particular case, from West End into the circle on 211, going south and coming north on 15501. This is by far the most traveled route that I have seen today and that I have seen in the projections. Very similar to David's concept, it has an underpass. The left lane will go coming from West End. The leftmost lane is the express lane. It never stops, never merges, goes under, transitions under the circle, and keeps going. So it never has to merge. It is a 25-mile-an-hour lane, and at peak capacity, it can handle over 3,000 or 3,200 cars per hour. That's assuming 25 miles per hour, assuming a 16-foot car and 40-foot spacing between cars.
Each direction, 3,200.
Yes. So all by itself, it goes well over 6,000 during peak demand. The only limitation it has, it's only for cars. I've kind of arbitrarily decided on an 8-foot ceiling on this underpass with 4-foot support structure to support the circle up above. That makes it 12 feet under the circle ground level.
So what does the Amazon Prime truck do?
He uses the current circle. As you look at the picture, the current circle is unchanged. We're just adding the express lane, and anybody that doesn't fit the express lane uses the current circle. In addition, if an accident happens in the express lane and it's blocked for whatever reason, the existing circle still provides throughput, just like it does today. The express lane itself in peak rush hour time will take anywhere from 40 to 50% of the traffic. So with any amount of growth, it should work.
Before I had looked at any numbers, this was my thought, when I first started looking at the numbers, this also has the impact of taking 25 or 30% of the traffic out of the circulating part of the circle. So you're increasing the capacity of what it can handle.
Right.
And as Peter mentioned, if you're driving a big semi coming down 211 and you're going to go to Rayford, you have the surface option. You don't have to go underneath there anyway. There actually is in that 431-page document, there are some numbers about what percentage of traffic is truck traffic. I don't remember that off the top of my head, but this still diverts a significant amount. These two legs are the highest origin-destination pair of all of the five. And so it takes a meaningful percentage of traffic out of the circulating portion of the circle.
Can I jump in real quick? So if you recall, DOT, when they originally gave us two options 2.5 years ago, this is very similar to the second option. They actually had it as a flyover and not a tunnel underneath, but same basic concept of removing that leg and the largest amount of traffic out of the actual circle, and that would free up the circle to move more smoothly.
And you lose some trees without any question, but not a lot, because you can build this with retaining walls. You don't need the 3-for-1 slope, so you only need, call it 25 feet.
Well, I
30
figure
feet.
the 2 lanes with a 2-foot separation, it's 32 feet down at the bottom. With 15-degree up, it'll be 38 feet at the top. So,
Out of a 600-foot circle, of which about 550 feet are trees.
I was going to mention the same thing Doug just commented on. This is very, very similar to the flyover concept, and I don't know specifically why they chose a flyover, but my guess would be that there's a deal with water. Whenever you start digging in this area and you get low, water management becomes an issue. And so the engineer is going to have to take a look at this and say, are we going to be at periods of time in which you're basically expected to drive through rivers here when you go down. When you go up, you don't have that issue.
and
well, some of the-
one of the reasons why we kept it to an 8-foot clearance is not to go 20 feet deep. We're only going 12 feet deep, and if you go down 15501 to the neighborhood down the street, and I shot it with my laser, which is not very accurate, but you can actually drain the circle or drain the 8-foot depth down the hill on 15501. So water would not be as much of an issue. If we go 20 feet deep, you're right, we would have a river down there.
Many of the objections for the flyover had to do with above-ground structure.
Understand?
From a historic perspective, that was considered a no-no, and that was a significant objection.
I would also-
Changes the streetscape completely. This doesn't change the streetscape very much at all. In fact, I don't think you would even notice it
It takes
standing.
about an acre and a half out of the circle.
And
It's,
what's the difference in the amount of, between the two we just saw, the amount of traffic that's removed from the circle?
I didn't do any calculations for my scheme.
But does your scheme remove some or not?
No,
Yeah.
everybody's still in the circle.
It's the same
just a little more
circle.
complicated.
Yeah,
but
and
it
yours,
should be able to handle, his design should be able to handle 200,000 cars, because it's continuous. It keeps going.
okay, but neither of yours had street lamps, or street lights, right?
No. One thing that you could do here, in the existing circle that's left behind, you could meter it at some point if you run out of capacity. I don't think you'll run out of capacity with basically adding 30 to 40% to existing capacity.
Yeah.
But you could always put lights in the existing circle and meter the merge lanes.
And Jeff, I would mention that after the SMPO technical meeting, I actually spent about 25 minutes with Scott Walston, retired from DOT, now the new interim executive director. And he admitted that when they study problems like this, they do not give any consideration to aesthetics. It's not that they're immune to hearing from us, but that's why they would come up with the flyover, because they're just not thinking about that. They're thinking about throughput and what have you. But they're not immune to hearing about that from us, so.
Well, and they have.
No,
And
they heard it loud and
that's, we
clear.
talked before, that we've gotten a seat at the table, want to make sure we're communicating with them and discussing that. And at least the response that I heard from them was that they're willing to consider that. And they're able to make it aesthetically pleasing in the various things that they're willing to look at. I'm not a professional engineer, okay? And Mayor Pizzello's liked to joke before my assessment on gravity and water. I can tell you it's going to go downhill. At what rate and what's the incline and things like that, I don't know.
I mean, they
But
would
the-
have, DOT would have to put a pipe down to Pinehurst Manor.
Got it. And then how is it done? I don't know. I'm just telling you that having dug holes and I had to be in them for a while, and it rains and
Water is an
you get
issue.
water in the hole, okay?
Water is an issue.
And so it's a factor.
We'll have to have a downward slope.
And with all these, it has to be looked at by DOT and analyzed what can they do.
And last year, along the east side of 15501, they actually made some increases in the size of that drainage ditch right along that
Yes.
area, along Pinehurst Manor and so forth.
Yeah, and the deeper the hole, the bigger issue. When you talk about 8 feet, that's a pretty small car, or, maybe a pickup truck, but
So it
about
looks-
that pickup truck's not getting through there.
We probably would want to figure out the number of trucks that go in there versus cars, so we just from the standpoint of understanding the bigger picture. And from what I've heard is that either of these two proposals can handle the traffic projections, which I think are a little larger than they may well be. So that doesn't seem to be a debate then of which proposal can actually handle more capacity. Am I right or am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. Mine is a very cheap proposal.
You got the cheap guy.
David's
And
proposal, we have to win a
He's
lottery.
the Rolls Royce. We didn't get to that yet. I want to know about that lottery, but go ahead.
Well, one thing also keep in mind, we're just guys scribbling. We're not engineers for our
Right,
place.
right.
And the county has computer modeling for this kind of stuff and can answer all these questions with the software they have, which we obviously don't have.
Sure.
So we don't want to put ourselves forward as experts in highway design.
Okay.
But
Ask for an idea, you got an idea.
That's what we
about
got.
it.
And self-effacing comments notwithstanding, they have spent a little bit of time looking at grade restrictions and what have you. Not to suggest that DOT won't say some of them are wrong or what, but this, again, the idea is for us to decide that this is worthy of asking DOT to take a closer look at and apply their standards rigorously.
Yeah, and I think since it's very similar to something they initially proposed, I think this has a lot of weight.
Is there any way to make that, I'll call it your express lane, to make it more curved than a straight line?
In here? Yes. but
Yes, I
we
mean,
really-
it sticks out like that, whereas if
Really,
it was
we
like,
didn't want to take as much of the, you're talking going out like this, you take more of the woods.
or could you,
We could
or
hug,
this way?
we could hug this road.
Yes.
And take less of the woods.
The-
Just
the reason-
David drew this up based on my hand drawings. He didn't want it to make it look too good.
David's fault. But I'm just thinking it looks more circular.
Yeah, I think the only constraint in making it follow the same radius or similar radius to the circle would be the amount of retaining wall, how much earth are we retaining, how much space do we need for that? All that's money.
Understand?
It's all doable otherwise.
The nice part about where it is that you could do a lot of the construction with a circle, the above-ground circle still operating. You could be inside digging all this.
I see.
Working on it, working on the ramps outside.
It doesn't look like you're acquiring any
No.
property.
There will be no eminent domain.
Due or
We
no-
do widen this by one little lane, merging,
Oh, okay, yeah.
because there are actually 3 lanes here rather than 2 lanes.
I see, yes, yes.
Also keep in mind, we're working off a Google map
Sure.
in terms of level of existing condition accuracy. So this is it's all concepts, not engineering.
Gotcha.
Well, the other thing is the shifted pillow CFI would have shifted the circle somewhat away from Airport Road because they had some backup studies, capacity studies that suggested with the growth that the backup coming Midland Road from the east could back up to there, and they wanted to change that intersection. It is conceivable that with the improved throughput, that they wouldn't need to do that at all, just so that we don't be so provincial that we only look at the traffic circle, because that is on their mind as well.
Go ahead, continue, please.
Okay, the next option,
Just a little to the left, right there.
is a straight through.
Too far.
It's a straight through, 15501 north to 15501 south. This takes more of the trees because the trench cuts right through the circle, and it is not the highest, it's the second highest traffic.
Right, right.
So,
In our opinion, this is last place.
yeah, we wouldn't consider that. This is, you know,
Yeah,
based-
actually, the handouts that you guys hopefully got, there's some purple on those, which for some reason is not showing up in our slide. But the purple will explain what this was supposed to
you
explain.
can look at the pictures, 6.3 acres. The true continuous would take about 2.8 acres out of that. The Mamuzich Express would take 1.6 acres, or 25%, and the straight through would take 33%.
True continuous with the purple, I'm looking at the purple map. It's taking more than I thought from looking at the screen when you were walking us through the cars, so I didn't, but what you're saying there is it's actually a 44% loss.
Because it has a lot of underpasses and lanes on the inside.
Yeah, it's the donut dimension, which.
But it's also the outer part of the inside, which is why it takes more of the area.
It's deeper, so it takes more room for a retaining wall.
Right. And that slope isn't shown on the other drawings, Pat. That's why it's a surprise. Why is it so much?
I mean, these are some of the factors that David and I went through as we were looking at the different options. And I have to say, David did a wonderful job putting this into really good drawings. Mine were just a hand-drawn thing.
Right. So we have the true continuous flow. Then we have, hold on, we have the Mamuzich Express, or
Yeah,
or
the guy's reading it.
or we could call it the fly under.
Straight
Okay,
through, we call
I
it
mean,
straight through. Here, I'll go to the front.
Right? I mean, yeah, okay. And the last one is the straight through express. Well,
Here are the
again,
three options that.
I can't, I'm impressed, to say the least, that people took the time and made a serious proposal. I'd like to ask Parker, do you have any observations after watching these two geniuses at work?
So I would say regarding option 2, the reason why NCDOT studied a flyover only is that NCDOT does not allow new structures to be built with less than a 14-foot clearance or a 16-foot clearance for interstate highways. So that would need to be a much longer approach and much further digging down if you were to do your second option you proposed. And also, NCDOT has studied option 3 already. They found it was insufficient because of the traffic going on 211 to 15501 south, unsigned 211 on that segment as
Right.
well. So that they found that we would need to have 2 tunnels essentially if we were to do those straight through tunnels, and that we need longer approaches. Yeah, they said basically 2 or 3 were not sufficient. You would have to study something that
Well,
combined both.
I guess the question I would have back to them about that is, the straight express would remove X amount of cars from the circle, whatever that number is. So that changes the traffic flow around the circle. Yes, it doesn't remove as many as the 211 fly under. Okay, so that's a bit of the trade-off of if we, are we going to get to the perfect capacity number, or do we factor in something else? But that's a good, thank you for that, Parker.
Yeah,
And I also-
Parker, remember these proposals, a couple of them talk cars only, but there was plenty of clearance. There is no restriction on clearance for any trucks. They can use the current circle.
Yes, so the trucks would stay where they are. The problem is, like, NCDOT has seen I don't know if you've seen this bridge in Durham that has gone famous online. A guy who owns a business next to it has pointed a camera at it. It's 11foot8.com, and he keeps uploading videos of people who rent moving trucks and crash into the bridge. And when you rent a truck entirely anywhere within the city limits of Durham, you have to sign a form saying, I'm not going to drive under this bridge. And you know what? People do it anyway. So that's why they've said anything that we build from now on has to be 14 feet.
I have to say that certainly Scheme 2 could be adjusted to have 14-foot clear. Just a question of the length of the ramp and the size of the embankment and how steep it is, how much retaining wall. So I don't think the constraint of the underpass clearance it really changes the concept of Schemes 2 and 3.
Okay. I see a hand up, an engineer's hand. You want to come up here, Bruce, and say something? Yeah, come on, come up to the microphone.
Yeah, go ahead. I had another comment about one when you're done. Okay. Yeah, for comment on number 1, do you know what turn radiuses you'd have and what speed you'd be allowing for the one lane that comes from each direction that goes through the circle?
No, but I can get it to you.
Okay, yeah, that,
Radius is 150.
okay, so
Most of
probably
them are in
like
excess
15
of
miles an
300.
hour or so then through the circle. I just don't see that as improving the throughput that much. If all lanes going in the circle now have to go down to like 15 or so rather than occasionally being able to stay at 30 when they merge in.
Which is in need of some engineering, may get down to 150, 200 feet. And for a 25 mile an hour speed limit, I think that's doable.
Yeah, that one on the left-hand side coming from 211 east, that one looks particularly tight. It reminds me of, it's a bit far from here, but I-85 south to I-77 south in Charlotte. It seems like every few days someone crashes in that barrier, and as soon as they
Talking about this
replace
one?
it, the barrier is destroyed again from some truck or something that couldn't make the turn.
The true continuous flow
I think
one?
he's talking about the underpass there,
Yeah,
between
the
those two
underpass
spokes.
seems extremely tight.
Easy to fix.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And the other thing is the distance between the bridges is a bigger challenge than the turn radius. And I think understanding the underlying existing topography, trying to figure out a balance between separation of bridges and elevation of the top side and the lower side needs to be worked out in more detail. We just don't have enough information.
Understandable. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just see with that being an issue with those two factors conflicting with how far you can go down versus the turn radius, especially on where you have 211 cutting right into 2 there.
Now, that's the tightest spot right there. And the shortest distance between bridges is that one. Not to say that it can't be improved on.
But this can be improved by starting the radius here.
Starting the radius, I have to look here. Hold on.
Sharp radius.
Then you have to go just further back to get the tunnel in and.
I mean, I
I'm
guess
not sure
You're,
if
you're
you can
using the
break it up
phrase tunnel,
insert.
but it's not a tunnel, right? Is that an accurate phrase?
Well, it's
right,
an
it's not a tunnel, it's an underpass.
underpass.
Yeah,
Okay,
think of the
okay.
railroad crossing at the club. That's the best physical example that we're all familiar with.
I think the reason you put it so far north is so that it can come up in time, so that you can go down to 250
Yeah, that's right.
south, right?
Bridge separation distance.
Yeah, so you may not be able to bring that further south.
But it could go in a bigger sweep into the treed area.
Yeah, if you take away more trees there. But.
Or I add a retaining wall and don't take any more trees.
Yeah, okay, let's hear from another engineer. So we just haven't heard from enough tonight, so come on forward.
Yeah, I don't have any comments on the proposals. They're all very well thought out. But let's sort of mentally zoom way, way out, okay? Let's imagine growth in Moore County, southern Moore County, and where that growth is assumed to occur. The 2013 travel demand model is based on some 10 to 12,000 more homes out towards West End. In the Pinehurst ETJ, the Foxfire ETJ, what was going to be Stonehill Pines, what was going
Yeah,
to be
we know
Pine
that,
Forest.
okay.
Well, these models and the assumptions in these models account for that kind of growth, because those are the projections given by DOT. If you take away that kind of growth and go to something that's more realistic, we're going to grow. The question is how much and where. If we take a more realistic assumption or a more realistic look, like we're going to do with the TAZ numbers that DOT is going to ask for, chances are we're not going to have the kind of pressure on 211 and 2050 that people think.
Right.
It should be much less. So the third option, the straight-through express, DOT says that's not viable. That's not viable based on 2013 assumptions. If we take fresh assumptions,
I would disregard that not viable. That thing will, it's 250% of projected.
okay, well, regardless, we have to take into account the big, big picture of growth, how much growth and where, and how much that might pressure
Well, that's true.
the circle.
But when we get the new numbers, we can apply them to these drawings in essence and see what the
Exactly.
change is.
That's my point.
Yeah, yeah, that's obvious. They're working it off the same data that everybody's been working off, but it's 10-year-old data.
I'm glad it's obvious.
So when it's,
No, growth may be north on 15501. That's going to 4 lanes. So
yes.
who knows?
And
That's
also,
why,
I don't know, Jack, if you want to mention the western bypass.
Western Connector, I'd prefer not to mention that, no.
Yeah.
Say a word.
But back, Jeff, to the comment that you made 2 or 3 meetings ago, this is where conversation will help. And these are not designed to be finished products. If, as Doug suggested, we're going to have another proposal, let's call it between Thanksgiving and Christmas or by the first of the year from DOT, those are still going to be based on 2013, 2014 estimates. But we will be doing new estimates fairly shortly. And so part of the conversation will be around that topic.
I would hope new drawings would be based on new estimates.
So
I think
what-
we're misleading ourselves if we're working off 10-year-old estimates when we know there's going to be a new estimate in the next month or two.
Now, Pat, what do you want to do with these? I think they're very creative, all these ideas.
I'd like to,
How should we bring these forward, or which one should we bring forward? How do you want to proceed?
my thoughts are we package them up and send them with a note. And the note should talk about, one, the volunteer efforts of our residents who've obviously made some serious proposals that we've listened to and heard before the village council and before their fellow residents, whoever else is watching this. 2, we, oh, it's NCDOT, they've been listening. No. 2, we should, in transmitting it, point out that the underpinning data here is the data that is 10 years old, and we're looking forward to the new data to see how that changes some calculations. And then I think the third thing is we ask them to give us some initial impressions. Or, is something, regardless of the data, is something too crazy? We can't do it. Dr. Morgan mentioned the issue of water and gravity and all that. If that's something that is a deal breaker, we need to know that ahead of time. And of course, we don't have any financial numbers with this at all, but that's another issue, so to speak.
I'd be a little concerned about just sending it, in a communication rather than asking for a meeting.
Oh, well, we could ask for a meeting, definitely also. I mean, I wasn't going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We want a
one
meeting.
thing is that these are ideas and plans, but what you have on this page, on the circle entrance, I think that should be done as soon as possible.
Approach angle. The approach angles.
Approach angle.
Yes, the approach angles. Yep.
Send all of this to them, but say, do the approach angle, guys. That'll eliminate or drastically cut on the access.
And I also think that some of the other things we sent in our last letter, additional lane dividers, a little clearer signage.
Speed limit.
The speed limit, I hear that very often. Those type of things should be done while we're figuring out what's the sort of bigger solution. But yes, I agree. So Doug, you got the outline of a letter?
Yeah, I'll be happy to reach out to them. you know, we've been trying to have an open relationship with Division 8, so I'm more than happy to share this with them and say, hey, when we meet, you know, can we discuss these and compare them to what you might be proposing, and yeah, we can do that.
And you're
by
right
the-
that excuse me, go ahead.
By the way, there's on that stick, and probably now on the computer, there's a PDF version of this, so they don't need PowerPoint to see all this stuff.
Thank you.
I think Shannon.
You are
owns-
correct that
Shannon owns the,
Mamuzic Express
media.
is very similar to the flyover. That was a turbo flyover, which would be even better. But this doesn't change the look of the circle.
Yep.
Well,
Right.
it maintains kind of the same functionality.
It's important. Yeah. Okay, any other thoughts? We'll put together a letter to communicate and then see. Lynn, did you have something you want to say?
Of those, is this on?
Yes.
Oh, of those three, I like 2 and 3 better. I just think they'll be less confusing for your usual drivers, and especially people who come here and aren't familiar with how to handle that circle. I think we have to be careful about just how confusing we make it. But I was also wondering, is it an option to do 2 and 3? What I like on that third one is I think of 15501 being the main highway that commuters are taking. And I like the idea that they can just proceed straight, not enter a circle, not have those slowdowns. So I especially of all the three, I think I like that third one the best, just that main road continues without a stop.
Thank you.
But I don't know also, I don't know if they've looked at the people entering the circle from 211, how many are going south and how many are going north? Because if it's 50-50, we're only taking care of a little portion
Well, I
of
think
it.
the theory
You're
is if
saying,
they're
oh,
going
is it-
north, they probably turned earlier to
Go
go
on
north.
Page Road and
Yeah,
go north?
73 and
73.
the other road
Okay.
out there, so.
All right, thank you.
The highest volume connection is 211 to 15501 south.
Really? Only 6% of the traffic? But that's from 10 years ago?
Projection was made in 13.
I'm kind of surprised, because when I hit that circle, I'm seeing it backed up in both directions. But I do understand that 211 is backed up worse. Yeah.
Problem is, once you get load up the circle, it's really hard to merge in.
Yeah. Mm. Right, right.
Yeah. David and Peter, question, is the assumption here that going into the circle is a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit from you guys?
No, 25.
You're 25?
Yes.
25.
5 in the circle.
Okay. Thank you.
And for some distance back.
The origin and destination, the pairing of the roads started with their actual traffic count in 2023, and then they carried that forward to a 2029 and a 2050 projection. But those are the two roads, 211 and 15501 South carry a disproportionate share of the traffic.
Okay. Thank you. We'll
Thanks for listening.
transmit and appreciate all your work. Very helpful.
Yep, tagging on to John's comment there, I think that NCDOT is appreciative of our citizenry being as involved and interested in trying to find a solution. This also demonstrates a willingness to discuss things, because we're not the experts on management of traffic, but there may be something in there they say, okay, well, we can't do this, but we can take this component of this and add it to this, and then so that they piecemeal it type of thing, that potential's on there, so different ideas on there. But I think the most important thing on here is that we are communicating with NCDOT, and again, trying to address the fact that we're trying to come to a solution also. So I hope that's how this is phrased.
Very good. Thanks again. Jack and John, particularly, thank you for working with the presenters. Okay, item B, discussion on the social district.
So back in August, we brought before the council a request from the business community to extend our social district that we had at the US Open. And at that time, we decided upon only doing it for special events and major activities that were happening in the downtown area. We said after October, we would reevaluate. So we have done that time period, and now we're ready to reevaluate. So we have, initially I proposed we do one all the time, or we do it only weekends, or we do it only special events. We did not have any major problems over the 4 or 5 events that we did over the fall. And I shared the survey information with you. It seemed like most of the business community was supportive of it. We didn't have a lot of restaurants that were actually serving and handing out the cups with the ability to walk around the district. But there were a lot of people, retail shops, that said they were more than happy and willing to have people come in with those special cups. So is there a pleasure of the board on which way we should move forward with this?
The survey you handed out, it seems a bit small.
That's all the people that wanted to respond, so.
And some of them, like a realtor, I mean, I don't know how a realtor would be involved in this, but
I would say, given your second paragraph, the sentence that says feedback indicates that there is no longer a strong push for the social district. Given the survey results, I think option 3 looks like.
yeah.
Yeah, and I would say there's an option 4 is that we don't do it at all.
Well, I've been, odd man out on this, obviously, but I think option 3 makes some sense in the sense that we really got to decide where we're going as far as what type of character we're trying to portray here. And I think that comment, that last sentence, staff has also received some comments from residents suggesting that it does not align with the atmosphere or character of the Pinehurst. I'm glad you put that in there, because I think that's quite true. Because we have to be very concerned with the residents and the citizens, their opinion on this matter too. I think there are some events that it sort of makes sense. Maybe, obviously the open where everything's kind of up for grabs. Something like maybe the barbecue festival. It sort of fits in a way. So, but there are a handful, no more than that, not even that maybe, where I think the staff can come forward and recommend that we implement it for that particular event. That may
Go
make
back
sense.
to
But I'd like
3.
council to keep control of this to a great extent.
And I would say that I'm probably moving a little bit more in Jack's direction than that. And it's colored by something that you'd say really isn't apples and oranges, but I happened to be in Nashville for a wedding about 3 weeks ago. And boy, in downtown Nashville, they've got party buses going through at 11 o'clock in the morning, and they're double-decker buses.
That's
We don't,
apples and.
I understand it's apples and oranges, but to Jack's point, we have to think about, we talked about this in the concept of the pedal bar, and I'm just not sure that we want to be going in that direction. I'm happy to support the downtown merchants. If they're uniformly in support of this, then I would be in support of that as well. I don't think the survey is quite as robust. I wish, but people either respond or they don't. We give them the chance, and it's not their fault. It's not our fault if they don't respond. I like special events, certainly. I don't think I'd want to do it every weekend.
What are we trying to accomplish with this? I mean, what does it accomplish? How does it benefit who? And I think in certain circumstances it may make sense, but I'd like to see them be quite selective.
I don't think it's as impactful as, say, things like the Holly Arts and Crafts Fair, or my informal survey of merchants. They were very supportive of that. They thought they did do additional business, even though, I don't think they view this as positively as they view things like that. And maybe we restrict it to times when we have things like that.
How do we determine the special events only?
Yeah, so I was going to suggest if we are leaning towards special events, we have our listening sessions with the downtown business community. We can reach out to them and say, which ones do you think will be helpful throughout the year? They can pick 4 or 5 that may work, and I can bring them back to council, and we can discuss that.
Yeah, okay,
I like that idea.
good plan.
I have no problem with that.
Fine with that.
Okay. You got your answer on that?
Easier than I thought it would be.
Okay. Feedback on Gibbon Memorial Library design, excuse me. Who's presenting?
That would be me.
Okay?
So a couple of things. I mentioned earlier that we probably won't be bidding this out during the month of December, which I think makes sense, but we'll try to do it early next calendar year. And the other thing I mentioned in the memo is that unfortunately, the topography of the landscape of the property makes it difficult to put a ramp in. What I reached out to the architects today and asked was like, would it be possible to maybe put a ramp from the back parking lot to the front door? Because we'd have more space to work with, and that maybe that's a possibility, because I've heard lots of feedback that they would like a ramp to be able to either get mothers with strollers or some other
Right.
way to get to the into the building.
Well, what confuses me is that the very first diagram we saw from them had a ramp in the back.
Yeah, that's before they had the final civil engineering numbers, and there's not the ability to do that. They said it would have to look like Lombardi Street. You have to have switchbacks the whole.
Well, I think that
Can you scroll forward here?
a drop-off lane in front of the library, which I think is planned, as I recall, without parking,
Yep.
would be sufficient for a large percentage of the people who might want to entry, and someone can drop them off, either wheelchair and/or they need walkers, or somehow or another need more help. I think
It's not probably going to respond to the young parent with children in a stroller, because they're going to have to go park. They don't have anyone dropping them off. I thought some of the people who emailed in were persuasive that we should look for a way to do this if we can, but I do think that, having dealt with this in a different context once upon a time, the kind of the 12-for-1 ratio of slope makes it very difficult in the back. So going to have to be something in the front, and maybe that's the best we can do.
yeah.
We keep scrolling through this so we can see the rear view particularly.
So there's not elevations included in these. We can go through it page by page, but
All right.
Yeah, I don't need page by page. I just want to get a look at particularly the rear. Is there a, I believe I saw a lift there when I looked at it online.
yeah. So yeah, there is a lift. So I believe that's this right here. May not.
And how many steps are there?
Looks like 6. Or oh, actually, these would be the steps. So
Looks more like 12.
Probably double that.
yeah.
That's a lot of steps. That's a lot of steps for someone who parked their
Well,
car.
a generic, I agree that we should not put this out and ask for responses in the month of December. Do we gain or lose anything by putting the information out, even if we don't ask for a response until
Yeah,
January?
until later. Yeah, we'll put it out as soon as we can. Just we won't have the bids due until after the new year.
Right, yeah, I would, yes, please
That's
put it
fine.
out as soon as we can, and then just make it out there for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Please, yeah, keep going. No, that's inside.
As I recall, the base
this is the
of
back stairs.
Elevator, or what's it called, whatever, for handicap.
Lift.
The
Lift.
base of that is the same grade as the handicap spots in the parking lot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there will be handicap access at the back door through the lift, but if there is a way to potentially put in a meandering trail along the side of the building so that, you know, a mom with a stroller could potentially go in the front door, I think that might be a nice touch if it's possible.
And if it's not possible, then what are we leaving the disabled community with here?
So they could either enter through the front door or using the lift in the back.
Well, I'm missing something then. What's the difference then? Why can't they use if they're going to, are they going to use the front door anyway? Is there front door access? Or only,
Yeah, so currently the front door is only a drop-off, so there wouldn't be a place to park and enter in through the front door.
so the drop-off, though, if you have a disabled individual, you're not, the driver's getting out of the car also. So it's not I guess you could call it a drop-off, but it's certainly, there's got to be a spot for the car to stop to help assist the person getting into the building.
Right.
Okay, so it's,
Yeah, we can also have handicap parking in front of the building, but based on our discussion in the past, we removed that handicap parking in the front.
let me go back to the grading back here, the 12 steps. Is the reason they can't make it more accessible is because they run out of land in the back? Or is it a question if they had another 15 yards of land, they could make it fewer steps and a ramp? That's why I don't understand what they're, what's
I mean,
making them.
yeah, the reason why is that coming off the road, it's relatively flat, but once you get, 100 or so feet in, it starts to go down, and the parking lot is at a lower level than the actual building.
Well, is there a drawing of the rear? I'm trying to understand, is there a shrubbery or whatever's back there that indicates the end of the library lot? Is there such a drawing?
There's not. The ones included in here were only the building layout, the construction drawings for the library.
Yeah, the building layout, I'm fine with. I'm worried about the people who have a need to gain access, and I don't want it to be, I want to make the challenge as little as possible.
Right.
I don't know whether it's an engineering standard or a specific requirement in the ADA, but the slope on ramps is supposed to be 12 feet horizontal, 1 foot up. And if you've got 12 or 13 steps, you're going up 9 or 10 feet, you need 100 or probably more than 100 feet for a ramp.
Yeah, my point is, are we artificially stopping the rear of the parking lot behind them, so that if you moved the parking a little further back, you'd have a little bit easier chance of getting a ramp back there?
Maybe, but then you're putting the handicap spaces farther away from the building and making people have to go a longer
Well, you
distance.
could put those
I think we
spaces.
have space to do it, probably.
You could make their spaces the closest to the building.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, I think the argument from the architects was the grade that we're looking at, again, the drop that you have to overcome. It's much better served through effectively an elevator, which they're calling a lift. So you pull in and you elevate up through there mechanically, and you go from there.
Right. If council wanted, if we want to address handicap access to the building as much as possible, either we do a potential trail along the side here and enter in up here, maybe the porch or the front entrance here, or this drop-off, which we will not be including this angled parking, but we could do a parallel handicap spot there if we wanted to.
I think it's a mistake to have vehicles parked in front of a building that we spent all this time trying to make look nice.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the only other options to make it easily accessible.
Is there enough space coming up what from this perspective is the left side of the building, all the way from the lot to the front?
Yeah, that's what I asked them. I believe there would be. I mean, that's pretty far. And even if it is not the specific 12-to-1 ratio, it would hopefully be long enough that anyone a mom with a stroller would be able to do it, even without that. It could be 10-to-1, and it'd still be okay.
But we control the land on that side. We don't control the land on the right-hand side of the building, if you will. That property line is as far as we can go at the moment.
So the vast majority of the people who are going to visit this library, they're going to park in the rear, and then they're going to walk up 12 steps. We're not discussing the disabled now. They're going to walk up 12 steps to get in that library. I'm just going to suggest to you, that is a discouragement. That is not a way to seduce them in there. Just if it's my hunch.
Then we picked the wrong site.
Oh, maybe we just push it back a little. I don't understand where we seem to be jamming ourselves there.
Well, I mean, we are getting close to the edge of the lot in the back here.
Do we own the land I see a name on the property to the right of this. Do we own the land behind there?
Not this.
No.
Now, there's
So
a home.
we are boxed into these property lines.
Yep.
There's a home back there. It's my recollection. But the parking stops, what's the difference between the parking there to the next property line? Is that
Here?
50 feet, or can you tell? So, right, we've got all these parking spots back here. Yeah, shift it a little over the other side now. Go ahead up a little, there we go. So that's where it stops, the parking right there, and we've got this amount of space.
I'm assuming that's something like 10 or 15 feet. I don't know what the setback would be, but
So this parking space is 18 feet deep, so yeah, it's probably about 15 from the parking,
It looks-
which I think is our setback, so I don't think we can get any closer.
It just looks deeper in the back than the 18 feet.
Oh, here, yes, a
Yes.
little bit.
That's where I'm getting at.
Yeah, but moving the parking lot back doesn't,
It doesn't
still at
change,
a lower level than the
it doesn't
the
change the
library, which is at a
risers.
higher grade.
and are the concentric circles in the lower, is that some sort of drainage, or
Yes.
that's just topography?
It's like a
No,
retention.
that would be a storm drainage.
Does anyone recall the number of parking spots we're going to have? I know we went through this.
46.
48, 46,
yeah,
something,
something like that.
Go ahead, drop down a little more so we could see no, the other way, the front again. Okay. So now we've got in front, is that 1, 2, are those 5 parking spots there?
So based on council feedback, we're removing these parking spaces, and we would widen this drop-off zone just to have kind of a through lane and just a drop-off lane.
And so I drive in and I drop off somebody, and then we're removing those spots, and then I can turn around, or I don't have to turn around, I can go straight out to Magnolia? Is that an exit there?
Yeah, you'd be able to leave here.
So I can come in here,
Yes.
drop off, and then go out that way,
Yeah, this is a one-way drive.
okay? And the closest parking for a disabled individual is where? The actual parking, someone who,
Yeah, right here. And so this is where they would park, and then here's the sidewalk to the lift right here.
so they park right,
Unless we have some on-street parking, but that won't be assessed until later on, correct?
on-street parking though is not, usually not recommended for disabled. If you can-
Yeah, and particularly on the curve here, I think on-street would be
I don't think that
difficult.
would work.
Okay.
Again, my recommendation is the trail on the side or adding a handicap spot in the front in the drop-off
Now,
zone, which I
you've got-
understand that.
You've got the
Jack would
pointer,
not want-
describe that trail on the side. Show me how that works again.
Yeah, so somewhere around here, they have the brick pavers. We just include a meandering trail to get up here to the front.
And right now, without that trail, it's just grass and trees or
Trees,
whatever?
yeah.
I don't know,
Again, I don't know what the slope would be. I just gave them that feedback
okay, but,
today.
so that would give the option to somebody to take the lift or to
Take the lift,
go that way if it's a sunny day, and they would come up with the stroller or in a wheelchair and come in the front door.
yes.
Are these numbers designed to be elevations, 492, 493?
Yeah, they're
and so
the
forth?
elevation lines. Yeah.
So it looks like 492 at the back, and at the front, it's close to 500, 498, something like, so it's only 6 or 7 feet up that side.
Yeah,
So you would have enough room at
I would
12
think
to
so,
1
that
to
we
come
could
up
get up
that
there.
way.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the meandering trail. I think that's, we're working our way to make it more accessible, easier accessibility.
I'm not trying to shortcut the discussion, but is our goal to formally approve this, or this is our feedback and we get one more set of drawings?
We're very close to, this needs to be finalized.
Well, if
But-
we agree to that trail,
Yep, and these plans are the building. We don't have a landscape plan yet.
not a building, yeah. I don't have any questions about internal, I mean, that's always,
Yeah,
Doable.
I don't think you care about how many heating ducts or where they're placed,
no,
things
no,
like
no.
that.
I don't. And,
Is there a place that you could bring a trail around to the side rather than having to go all the way around to the front?
oh, a side door entrance?
Yeah, or, isn't that patio or something?
Yeah, on the back here? Oh, yeah, it could be, the
Oh, could
trail
be.
goes from here to this patio area right here.
Right,
Great,
Yeah.
I like
and
that.
that's,
That way it's a shorter route. for
Shorter
the-
route,
the-
and then either, this, I don't recall if this is supposed to be emergency exit only, probably, but then at least you're on the porch to come into the front door.
Okay, that's a helpful idea.
even possibly do a ramp from the path up to that patio too.
So, yeah, we'll move forward with the path, and we will have a bid package prepared shortly, and if there's no other feedback, we'll move forward with the building as is.
I don't have any other questions at this point. So you go out as, whenever it's practical, give it ample amount of time so you get responses, and then that's when we'll see a final price tag. Okay.
Again, we're adding a path, we're subtracting the diagonal parking.
Yep.
And making room for some form of drop-off in the front,
Yeah.
however that is orchestrated.
Yeah, they were waiting for their civil engineer to play that out, so yeah, but that is the plan.
Who's the technical review committee?
It is an internal committee, so it is the fire chief, the public service director, and the planning director.
Okay, do you have the information you need, Doug?
Yeah, I'm good.
Anybody have any other input for Doug or questions? Okay. 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 All right. Other business is where we're at. So, Doug, do you have other business you want to bring to our attention?
Nope.
Okay.
Just a reminder, we have our retreat, December 3rd.
Okay, right in here. Jack, any other business?
No?
Barb? Okay.
I'm good.
Dr. Morgan?
No.
Okay. I have no other business. We've already covered other business. So we'll entertain,
Motion to adjourn?
yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Adopted.